All right, so this week I'm going to record some longer form videos about information and stories from former enslaved peoples who either encountered witches or them talking about witchcraft. And then there is also a story from a white woman who was the mistress of a plantation who also witnessed some witchcraft rituals as well. Like I said, these videos are going to be a little bit longer, but I thought that it was really important to show how a lot of this information got past, at least the historical context of it, coming from enslaved peoples and even from white people kind of viewing this as kind of an outsider looking in. So bear with me. You can always come back and save these videos, but here is the first one from South Carolina. Jacob Stroyer was another enslaved man born right here in Eastover, South Carolina around 1849. Now, when the Civil War ended, he was 16 years old at the time, but the plantation that he resided on had over 500 enslaved people, so it was a very large plantation. He worked as a stable hand caring for the horses, and never once did he try to escape because he was so young. At the age of 13, he was actually drafted by the Confederate Army to come and work for them. During that time period, he was wounded by the Union forces and then had to go back to the plantation, where he didn't recover until after the Civil War was over with. Now, his book, Sketches of My Life in the South, was published in 1879, around the time that he was 30 years old, and it talks about his time and his life as a slave on the plantation here in South Carolina, and he does have some experience with some witches on the plantation. Now, he says that there was no doubt that there were witches on the plantation who worked alongside the, all of the enslaved people every day. And the way that you could tell that they practiced any type of magic was that the fact when they grew old, they started to look very odd. Now, he says that they are witches and then jack-lanterns. So instead of the term warlocks, the men were referred to as jack-lanterns. Now, Stroyer's father came directly from Africa, while his mother at that time was a descendant, and so a lot of her family had already lost their connections to Africa. But his father, who was an African, had actually come up with the term jack-lantern, or used that term a lot to refer to people who practice magic. And this is the section referring to witch lights. He says, sometime after eating supper, the Negroes would gather in each other's cabins, which looked over large openings of the plantation. When they would see a light at a great distance and saw it open and shut, they would say, there's an old hag. If it came from a certain direction where those lived who they would suspect were witches, one would say, oh, that looks like Aunt Susan. Another one would say, no, that looks like a man hag. Still another one would say, I think that's old Uncle Renty. When the lights disappeared, they said that the witch had got into the plantation and changed herself into a person and went around in the place talking with people like others until those whom it wanted to bewitch went to bed. Then it would change itself into a witch again. They claimed that they rode human beings like horses, and that the spittle that ran out the side of the cheek when one slept was the bridle that the witch rode with. Sometimes a baby would be smothered by its mother, and they would charge it to a witch. If they went out hunting at night and were lost, it was believed that a witch led them off, especially if they fell into a pond or a creek. I was very much troubled with witches when he was a little boy, and now sometimes am, but it is only when I eat a hearty supper and then go to bed. So henceforth, now and forevermore, anybody that drools when you're asleep, you need to know that you were ridden by a witch and possibly changed into a horse in the middle of the night. I'm just kidding. Now, he also says the Bible and a question will send away witches. It was said by some of the slaves that witches would sometimes go into the rooms of cabins and hide themselves until the family went to bed. And when anyone claimed that they went into the apartment before bedtime and thought he saw a witch, if they had an old Bible in the cabin, that would be taken into the room, and the person who carried the Bible would say as he went into the room, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, what do you want? Then the Bible would be put in the corner where the person thought he saw the witch, as it was generally believed that if this were done, then the witch could not stay. Again, another section, he says, red pepper and salt sends away witches. When they could not get the Bible, they used red pepper and salt pounded together and scattered in the room. But in this case, they generally felt the effects of it more than the witch, for when they went to bed, it would make them cough all night. All right, in the next section on seeing witches, he says, when I was a little boy, my mother sent me to the cabin room for something. As I got in, I saw something black and white, but did not see what it was. And running out, said there was a witch in the room. But father, having been born in Africa, did not believe in such things. So he called me a fool and whipped me, and the witch got scared and ran out of the door. It turned out to be our own black and white cat that we children played with every day. Although it proved to be the cat, and father did not believe in witches, I still held the idea that there were such things, for I thought, as the majority of people believe, that they ought to know more than one man. Sometime after I was free and traveling from Columbia to Camden, a distance of about 32 miles, night overtook me when I was about halfway there. It was very dark and rainy, and as I approached the creek, I saw a great number of lights of those witches opening and shutting. I did not know what to do and thought of turning back. When I looked behind, I saw some witches in the distance. So I said, if I turn back, those will meet me, and I will be in the same danger as if I go on. And I thought of what some of my fellow Negroes had said about their leading men into ponds and creeks. There's a creek just ahead, so I concluded that I should be drowned that night. However, I went on and saw no chance of turning back. When I came near the creek, one of the witches flew into my face. I jumped back and grasped it. But it proved to be one of those little lightning bugs. And I thought, if all the witches were like that one, I should have not been in any great danger at all.